Welcome everyone to the 51st Keshe Knowledge Seekers Workshop. And today, as usual, we'll be meeting with Mr. Keshe of the Keshe Foundation at the Spaceship Institute. And this will be our last workshop from the Spaceship Institute. As we've known it before, they're going to be moving in the next while and down to the lovely town of Bari in Italy. And today we're going to have a little bit of different of a workshop in that Mr. Keshe wants to discuss the cosmology behind some of his teachings, and specifically speaking about black holes and how that relates to the nanotechnology and on the micro and the macro scale. And we'll have a couple of other questions and things to show as well as the workshop goes on. Okay, Mr. Keshe, are you ready to begin there?
Yes. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, a good day as usual to anyone who's listening anywhere and anytime. There are a number of things which we have seen in the past 2-3 weeks developing in the research side, the results and the observations, which brings into play that we can open a new door in a deeper way in respect to what you see in your test and what has been observed here in the lab test and with other people around the world. And as you see the picture on the screen, these are all connected and can explain a lot of things about the work of the cosmology and its relation to the work of the Foundation. There are, as we said, similarities in every size and dimension of the working of the universe, be it in a micro to macro and vice versa. And it's just to understand the working in a correct way, or at least trying to analyze the information. In so many ways, we do not have the tools to look into deep space, into the center of the universe. We have some images which we have taken a lot of information of the real pictures just to satisfy our need or our confirmation of understanding or being able to see what we think is there. But in a number of tests which we have shown here in past few weeks, we have actually shown the working of the universe in a hidden way, but as you are not aware of the knowledge, it has not been obvious and apparent to you. You have done a lot of tests, you have developed a lot of simple technologies, and you have measured a lot of things, but in reality, your knowledge is not deep enough to be able to connect and relate what you've seen into different dimensions of the work of the universe. One of these developments has been, as you see on the picture, the picture is by our Chinese colleagues. If we can get them online to explain to us what they've done. And there is a text with this. We need to put a text up as well. They have explained what they've seen and they don't understand. Is it possible to have the text which goes with this picture?
Yes, I can show that here. Sort of, I think. Let me see, I'll do it a little differently, like this. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll put the text beside the picture.
Have we got access to our Chinese colleague in China?
His name is Curl Lee, I believe.
Don't see them on.
Go ahead,
don't
Vince.
see them on GoToMeeting yet.
Okay, so maybe he'll be here later.
Can we open it up if it's possible to be able to read?
Yes, I've got that on the live stream now. I'm just trying to zero in on it and make it a little
we can
clear.
see. It's, this picture above consists of CO2 GANs. All GANs, aluminium GANs and CH3 GANs. Nano-coated and Fe electrode in pure water, which have been running for 1 month. The water have gone and the GANs is dry, attaching to the wall of the plastic container. And we can see some black stuff like a loop turned inside, which I think it's a GANS as well. What surprises us is that the voltage is still the same as before, but the current increase to 30 to 50 milliamps from 2 milliamps before.
Yes, and that was a loop formed inside, not turned inside, but just a small, but maybe significant difference there.
They don't tell us the measure of the voltage.
Right.
In the same parallel work in the lab here, we observed the same kind of thing, and I think if we can bring Evans in, he's done a test in China, which he was explaining to us yesterday, that when he puts the nanomaterial in the nano-coated material in the GANs. Is it possible if you could have Evans to explain his position, please?
Yes, I just turned it on. Good morning.
Hi,
very good, thanks.
Good afternoon, good evening to you.
Good afternoon. Okay.
Could you explain to us what you observed in putting the nano-coated material in the GANs, please?
The nano-coated material, I use a plate, nano-coated plate.
Yeah.
And when I measure the resistance of the between two any points of the nano-coated plate, it's when it's dry, the resistance is huge, but it's popping up because it's kind of interactive. It's kind of there's a reaction with the nano-coated plate. And when we immerse the nano-coated plate in the water, the resistance become like zero, close to zero.
In what water? GANS water or a normal water?
Or distilled water.
Actually, it does the same thing when we're producing the GANS. Like when we measure the current between the two electrodes, the nano-coating plate conduct. So we measure up to, depend on the distance between the two plates in the salt water. I think we measure up to something like 20-something milliamp. But definitely what we can conclude is from many measurements, outside of the water, dry, the resistance is very high. And then when it's in the water, and now it becomes conductive.
But becomes zero. You mean it becomes like a superconductor?
Like a superconductor.
what happened when you put it in the GANS material?
I think the same. The same. Even it's water, salt water, or GANS. So far, it seems to be the same. I didn't push any other experiment, especially with the GANs, to find out if there is a huge difference or something. But it seems to be that when it's emerged in the liquid, and the resistance gone, and it react and it behave like a superconductor, like zero resistance.
Okay. This, is there anything else you can add to it? From your point?
No, so far I'd like maybe someone else to confirm the same. I know that for you it's obvious, but maybe make more testing in different conditions, like with a coil, and see.
What is
with
the
a nanocoated
voltage
coil.
transfer? What is the voltage measurement?
What is the voltage between?
When you put the plate in, can you measure the voltage?
When you mean when we are making the GANs?
No, when you measure the current, what's the voltage?
Okay. When we measure the currents, are we talking about the which system? The system to produce the GANs or Armen system?
No, your system. When you put your plate in the water,
Oh,
you measure its voltage.
Oh, the voltage, if it's zinc, it's about 700 to 800 millivolt, and this is fixed. Yes, and except when you short circuit the two electrodes, you have no voltage, but obviously you have no voltage because they are short circuit, and then you have a current. And then if you take the two wires apart, and you can see the voltage building up to 750 to 800 millivolt again.
Okay. We have somebody says mine is also 750 volts. I think he means 750 millivolts. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Evans. The reason we bring this into to discussion today is because if you remember I'll put the video on if it's possible, if you can see it. If you remember the working of the unit which Armen showed last week. This unit, you see the audio, the video?
Yeah, we're just getting it now. It's a little fuzzy. It's just getting zeroed in. So this is Armen's reactor.
Can you see?
Okay. Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Keshe.
Okay. So now what you see here is a coil winding inside, nano-coated. Inside a brass tube which is nano-coated, And then you have this electrode, which is straight, goes through the center. Nano-coated. If you look how we measure the different kind of voltages and amperages at different points on this apparatus, which feeds into a resistance, is very interesting. Because if you go back into the, can I have the book number 3, please? Sorry. If you go back into the teachings of the book number 3, and if you look at the picture which is in the book, which is provided by NASA, we all know this picture very well. It shows so much the center line of the, oh yes, sorry, it's book number 2, picture number 13. Sorry, thanks. It says the original WMAP, image of the common, what's from Wikipedia is provided by NASA. We see a center line, what we call center line principal maps or matter disk, or what is known in common language as center line black hole. Yeah. Yeah. So if you look at this picture, which is provided by scientific organizations, in respect to how and what we see in the center of the universe, in a common assumption, scientifically, or people have, that the center black hole in the universe is just one mass in the center. This is not the truth. This is not what actually is. If it's too hard to grasp the concept and understanding, we can go on the other end and look at the division of a neutron. So what happens is that when a neutron divides, it does not divide like a dough in 2 halves by cutting in pieces. What actually happens, it's okay, I can push it to the side. What happens in reality is that, I lost my picture. We're back again. What happens in reality is that the neutron, when it divides like 2 jets. It goes out and then it splits. Can you see it? Nobody. Yes. Okay. Is it okay now? I think it's the sign of my heart. My heart is popping too. Is it better? So what you see so far, almost, yeah, okay. So you have a neutron which splits, it loses its gravitational magnetic field balance, magnetical field balance, and then it opens up. In opening, it splits into 2 parts, proton, and one becomes, and this does not become a balloon in one go. What happens, this carries on moving, and in reducing its speed, it creates its own field around the center, and in motion, it creates its own gravitational magnetic field upwards and inwards. So, till it finds its balance, and it takes its last shape, the final shape. So, in fact, what we see in picture number 13 in the book is a copy replication of the same thing, but we don't see the neutron part. Let's say our universe is not the electron part of the division of another universe, but is a proton size. So what we see in the center as a black line, which we always thought is a black hole in the center of the universe, is not a black hole. The black line is a horizontal line, which the ejection of the fields from the last universe is still pushing through as it's going through the environment of the unicos, exactly as a neutron is ejecting its material out in a streamline as fields, and for them down, they create gravitational magnetic field, and then they become what do you call it, a plasma shape. So in fact, what we see in the structure of the central line of the WMA map is a line which is in line with the reality in the world of physics, in plasma technology. So we do not have a central line, a central hole in the center of the universe. Not have a central black hole in the center of a proton or electron or neutron. We have a elasticated shape of electron proton which is on the move, and that movement creates its own friction with its own structure. What does it mean? If you look at the MW map, it's thin on the edges and it thickens in the middle and it thins on the back. This is the direction of the flow of the plasmatic materials which have created it. This is the tip of the arrow. So it's continuously is weaker and it has a smaller gravitational magnetic field. The end has the same properties, because most of the in the center, what we call mass, is in fact sitting in the elongated column in the center. Why does this happen? As the plasma of the last universe is divided in a jet stream moving out in the space of the unicos, or in a neutron dividing, it's ejected like a jet. It's literally like finding a hole with the oil in a balloon, and you see the oil gets ejected out of the balloon. It's the same thing, but there you have a plasma of a, what do you call it, fields. Then, as you have, for example, the balloon is a neutron and it has oil in it, and you make a hole in the side of the balloon. As the material ejects out, till it finds its position on the ground or on the wall, it does not take its final shape. But if it could carry on, you see it going like an arrow till it finds its final shape or it slows down. It happens with the mass. Yeah, okay. So you see the ejection of the plasma from the last universe, which is the tip is S, the middle carries most of the mass, and the bottom is the last bit which is coming out of the balloon. So you have the same structure. Then what happens in the condition of the plasmatic magnetic fields, the head fields have already slowed down. So they are at a different strength here than here. As this second one approaches to the first one and it slows down in interaction, then it turns and leads to creation of new plasmatic magnetic field environment. And if these new strengths are at the strength of the matter level, you start seeing creation of matters around the central line. And then the same thing happens with these fields with the others, so you start getting the shape of the universe. In a, not a full sphere shape, but in an oval shape, as we've seen, and this confirms, this behavior confirms the shape of the universe as we've seen it and it's been planned on MW map. Now, what does this mean? This changes a lot of things in the world of science. This simple explanation changes every assumption which is made in the world of cosmology, in the world of physics. In so many ways, what has been assumed by the scientists as CERN, that what they call God particles, we show how God particles are created, how matters are created in a plasma of a proton, electron, or a universe. As these fields in the back are still going with a much strength, faster than the front, which are slowed down, they interact. And this interaction creates a ballooning effect of the different fields as they interact at different strength, and leads to creation of different state of matter at different plasmatic strength. So what you get in reality, at the beginnings, you get most of the strength like a hydrogen, and as they move further and they reduce, you get the lighter planets and lighter stars. And as you are more in the center, with a heavier, stronger gravitational magnetic field, you get a heavier mass planet and star formations. So, for the first time, we understand the creation of the universe. The creation of entities in universe, which they like to call it in the nuclear or plasma technology, God particles. In a bigger scale, we call it stars and planets. Every star is a God particle. And this is how they are created. And we see a mass in the center because of the flow of the gravitational magnetic field strength being ejected. Is not as it comes and it balloons out. In no condition in the universe we have a black hole which is black hole as a spherical. In totality, even what we see as a black hole, in the center has the same shape. It has to have that shape. And what is slowed down at the border of the equality or balance of gravitational magnetic field in absorption, exactly like nanomaterials, that is black, because it absorbs most of the light and what it emits out at the same time. This leads to the creation of what we call matter. Now, this brings what we've seen and what we have seen here in test. In the helmet, in the lab, we've seen the same thing. We set the system at current on the base and the top of helmet at 0.1 volt amp. There was no change. Yesterday, we reconnected, separated the helmet from the bottom. Yesterday, Armen isolated the two parts. And we increased the amperage to 0.2. And in this process, up to now, we see zero voltage, but we see current flow. Even in this apparatus which we have, which you see here, and an ammeter, we have the same thing, if you can see it. It's zero, you can see, yeah. Can you see it now? Upside down, we go, we already tested. Okay, we try to give you a better look. Can you see it? Is it better now? You can see it. We can't move it. So, as you see here, the voltage is still zero, but we have 0.5 amp. So, the condition comes and the explanation comes, how can you have no voltage but amperage? And how can we reach such a condition? The fact is that we go back to this because you can see it, then you can understand it easier. But because there is a resolution in the back. Okay. In this apparatus, here in this picture, we show the center line here. Center line is so what happens is that when you apply a current flow and not in that position as a center line a potential or level difference, because all the materials in the center are more or less of the same strength, they have no potential difference, but field, but you see no voltage. And this is the behavior and characteristics of nanomaterials, GANS materials, and the materials in this, what you call as a scientific electronics, we call it superconducting materials. This is a huge breakthrough in developing superconductive environments at room temperature and room. So what happens when you put a current through the center, you replicate the same process as what happens in the center of a universe or the center of a proton or a neutron. Yeah, okay, we are, yeah, okay. We're gonna switch off the live stream in the lab. Maybe we get better. Yeah, okay, so we might have an answer that we're looking for. Okay. In so many ways, what we see in this process, we see very much, if you could measure the environment around this, we'll see a universe, universal structure, where what we have encapsulated in the center is the center of the universe line, and around it we have the same kind of fields. What we call is Coulomb's barrier, or what we call the universal barrier, or what you call the atmosphere. So in reality, in a simple structure setting, and what we saw with our Chinese friends, when you reach a point of free motion, you jump from 0.2 amp to 30 and 50. This is because now when you created the right condition, you are traveling in no voltage area, there is no potential difference, and the current flow becomes free. So the current increases. You go with a faster motion in a vacuum condition. What happened in the plate with Evans, that he sees no resistance, due to the natural nanomaterials and the thinness of the plate, in that condition in the water, the gravitational magnetic fields of the nano layers, instead of going outwardly, they go inwardly. So at this point, because the protons and electrons in the structure of the copper itself are magnetic gravitational field elements, they become part of the magnetic field environment, and the motion literally becomes irrelevant. Physical vibration of electrons is irrelevant. The resistance is irrelevant, because all the energies are now transferred on the magnetic field, plasmatic magnetic field condition, or what you call a superconductor. So to create a superconductor condition, you can put a material, even non-nano-coated, inside a GANS material which is coated. If it's thin enough, the fields will make the resistance in the conductor, be it copper or whatever, more or less zero. And the material behaves as a GANS or a nanomaterial, even though it's in a matter state. This goes back to our teaching on the health, with the explanation of the working of the guts and stomach and the intestine. And what we explained, that the minute you put the matter in your mouth and passes through the back of your throat, the food, the matter enters a gravitational, plasmatic, magnetic anymore. And now you see the parallel in the work of the universe. And you see the parallel when you take food, as we explained, in your mouth, and it goes through the back of your throat and enters the channel, the food, to get to the stomach. From that point, because the food, even it is in matter state, now behaves like a superconductor. As you see, when you immerse your electrode into the water, or you put your matter without the nanomaterial coated or nanomaterial coated into a GANS, which is a magnetic field environment, like the center of the universe. So, in one test, simultaneously, 2 in China, 1 in here, and with the measurements which is done, you come to understand matter to be a gravitational magnetic field entity plasma of a different strength, and is working in the universe. And in so many ways, this explanation brings back the medical application side of the teaching, in line with cosmology, in line with the power supply, in line with nano. Now that we start seeing and developing different aspects of the technology, now you see how they come to have a common denominator in every aspect. In reality, if you look at it the other way, the center line is the food which is going through the throat or in the stomach. And the tube is nano-layered. And when we put current through a nano layer, there is no voltage difference. The distribution of the fields is equal. So you don't see as such a huge potential difference, because it's in the total covered nano in structure plasmatic condition. And the food as a center line behaves the same way. We see huge voltages compared, once they become in a matter state, to the plasmatic state. The voltage is 0 at the entry. We measure it again. We do measurements. As you see, there are different numbers on the plate. We measure current and voltage at every point. The voltage is 0 at the point of entry, but the current at the moment is 0.5. Yesterday we did a 0.03 test. Voltage is 0 here.
I don't know if are you trying to show something or?
No, it's the same material on the table. It's just my pen. Can you see the movement of the pen?
No.
Nope.
Okay, we switch it off. Okay, we switch it off and we switch it back on. Can you see it now?
Just a minute here. Okay, it's back on and it looks more clear. Yes, it's a bit better.
Okay, so what happened is that this line in the center is the food, like the food which is going through the stomach, and the tube here is like a throat, nano coated with a nano coil. The voltage at the point of entry in the coil is 0, but the amperage is 0.05. And once we transfer the no voltage 0.05 amp into the structure and we measure in the matter state, which creates a division between different layers of the atomic structure of the matter, we find half a volt, and we find in measurements around 1890 microamp. And then we find out, what we see is that if you put a multiplication of the voltage input and the current input as a wattage, more or less 0, we measure with different equipments, it's still the same. The power production comes to 2 microamp, roughly around 0.002 milliamp watts, or we call it 0.2 watts of energy, milliwatts of energy. So when you look at it, you convert the current flow of the plasma into working power. We done some, every measurement here, you can see, we can show you a digital measurement done yesterday. We measure at every point. And we see the input between 3 and 4 at the amperage is 0. But the input at the point of the delivery is 0.2, and then it changes. Where, if you look, the amperage is 0.04, but there is no voltage measured by voltmeters and ammeters. But once the flow of the current or flow of the field comes to a halt and leads to the creation of matter state, then we see both current and the potential difference. This is very important for those who work in a material state. I have a very strange look on the table by Marco. What are you looking at? Just thinking, hard thinking. So what we see in a very simple structure, we can explain the parallel working of the universe in an atomic, molecular, and plasmatic condition. In a very simple way, solves a lot of mysteries in the world of physics which has never been understood, and a lot of assumptions which has been made. All these assumptions with very simple tests come to an end. And it can show the reality. And that's why a new dimension to the world of physics and plasma technology needs to be added. If you put the current flow through the center, where the flow will be outwardly, then you will see the same parallel structure as you see in the universe, where the center line becomes the what we call the principal matter line in the center of the universe, or in the electron, or in the proton, or a neutron. But you have to realize one further point, and that is, even in the molecular structure, the whole molecule has this center line. No matter, even in a matter state, is ever standing stationary. The only thing which happens in like molecular structures is, due to the presence of other fields around the center line of the, let's say, neutron, they create this motion to be circular. And this leads to the rotation of the electrons or protons and gives them that near steady stationary condition, what we call a matter state. So if we look into the structure of the full, let's say, neutron, that center line still is carrying on. It has not stopped. But due to the magnetic gravitational fields of the other matters, other plasmas in the environment, it does not carry on in the directional flow. It gets pushed into itself and leads to the creation of the motion of the proton, electron, or neutron. And this is how the motion, by conversion of the flow of the center line, is created in the world of creation. This is how we see and we understand why a proton, a neutron, the universe, a molecule is on rotation and the motion of a circular motion. If the field strength in the environment is not strong enough, this expansion will be bigger. We behave like a gas. If the universal condition, if our universe was flowing into a wall, we would have seen a universe with a flat end. We would have had a universe like this. But because the other universes around our universe are dictating plasmatic magnetic field of the direction of the flow of a universe, the universe takes a shape of a spherical or oval shape. If we stop an electron, if we stop a proton still in its position, we will find out it's not really what we assume to be a spherical. It's more oval shape, because the field is floating. There's still the same condition, and the front is always stronger than the back. So it creates that elongated, what we call the oval shape. Because as the fields are returning back into the end of the proton, they gather energy and fields in the center, so they leave a stronger shape. It's near spherical, but not necessarily fully spherical. But when you become a matter state and you change the rotation in axis in respect to the another entity, like Earth in respect to the Sun, you get a full spherical shape. Because now the environment dictates the shape in a solid state matter. In the gas state, you have, that's why the gas takes the shape of the room, the shape of its container. Because we allow the freedom of the motion in how it can be added and how it can dictate its position in respect to the condition it's in. Then, in a very simple way, we understand how we should be able to understand how to create systems which do not need resistors, transistors, and everything else. Because now we can dictate the speed of the motion, and we can dictate the speed of the change of the motion. We can dictate the distance that this motion can allow itself to be opened up into. This can be done with one plasma, it can be done with millions of plasmas. It depends what strength plasma you place in front of the flow and how much of it you're trying to resist by creation of the plasmatic magnetic field pressure. This changes the whole world of electronics, and this changes the whole world of what we call space technology. Travel without resistance. Because by the gravitational magnetic fields which you create around your craft, you dictate the thinness and the thickness of your fields, or the strength of your fields in respect to the environment. At a further distance, you create a weaker, similar to the environment which you're traveling in, so you have zero resistance flow. Superconductivity. The speeds at the speeds you decide in your central line of reactor, hundreds and thousands of times faster than the speed of the light, as we see it in the matter state. Einstein was not wrong in saying the speed of light is ultimate speed. The speed of light is the ultimate speed in the matter state. Because after that point, it reaches a strength which cannot be faster because it's conditioned by the higher strength. So the speed of light is conditioned to the magnetic field strength of the environment. The speed of light in the principal strength is totally different than the speed of light or visibility in the matter state. If you can create a speed of plasmatic magnetic flow very much as the center line of the universe with such a strength, then you will see you can travel with the speeds which are at this strength, not at the strength of the matter which is created when it's slowed down. Then when you reach a position anywhere in the universe, you can replicate your own condition in that environment that allows you to exist and to live. You do the same thing in your stomach. When you eat the food, when it passes through the intestine, different layers of intestine's gravitational magnetic field dictates what strength is extracted from the source, or from the liver, or from what you call the food which is going through your stomach. The coffee, please. In past 1 hour, if scientists understand what has been explained and expand on it, and we teach this and we explain it in the university in the opening months, then a lot of mysteries and myths in the world of creation, which has been assumed due to not understanding the fact and the truth, will be resolved. As part of the promotion video done by the teaching unit of the university, it says, we create the leaders of the future in science and in space, because with the knowledge you have, you will lead the rest of the scientists of the world into understand the reality and not the assumptions, which has been made to suit certain scientists for notoriety. We have to be able to achieve a full understanding. We have to understand without prejudice the reality. that it doesn't suit a PhD or a master or a professorship. Then we don't have anything to protect them. We can look at the reality and the structure of the working of the universe and the systems for this. Has been a question for Armen. He's tested everything. He says, I have no voltage, but I have current. How is this possible? There is something wrong. Measures it. It's still the same. It says there is a short circuit. We open the hat, we call it. I think you have to take this away. So underneath this. We took the helmet apart today to isolate it. And in that process of isolation, we measured the resistance of the nanomaterials which he coated several times over a few days inside the helmet and on the plate. We saw a very strange phenomenon yesterday. The plate is spherical. You all have seen it, the base. And I think it's our American delegation. Armen just arrived. Yeah, open the door. Oh, Caroline will do, no problem. The plate is spherical. Then the helmet sits like this over the plate. The plate is more or less 100% fully nano-coated because it's been coated and coated again and again. What we observed yesterday is that any nano-coated material which has been under the dome has conductivity. And any nanomaterial which sits outside the dome is still super resistance nano-coated. And this dome has been on for what, 2 weeks now? A week, 2 weeks? So what has happened in this system, we have 3 reactors filled up with CO2, copper oxide and CH3, and 1 central core on the top in the dome. The gravitational magnetic fields released by the GANS within the cores have changed the characteristics of the nano layers, even though not being in touch with them, but interacting with their fields, and have converted them from a nanostructure back to a nanostructure matter condition. We're still black. We're still nano layers with totally different behavior. In so many ways, nano layers, in interaction with the environment, they behave as matter condition. But at the same time, the strangest part is that when we look inside the dome, inside the hat, originally was something like a shape like this, I think if I remember correctly, in a shade of whitish, like a caustic residue. Now more or less the whole sphere has become whitish with the same residue. But it's still non-conductive, nano-coated. Don't forget that the dome, I can go further out, the dome sits on the plate. The structure under the dome still behaves as a nanomaterial, but the structure on the dome in flat behaves as is become matter state, conductive. We have added now 2 electrodes and 2 electrodes outside, and these 2 together into a power supply. And what we saw before we add the 2 together this way, the power supply was at 0.01 amp, and we increased it to 0.02 amp, and then suddenly jumped to 28, and then at 52 this morning. We have not touched the voltage. The environment, yeah, okay. Yeah, what happened here, we had 0.1 for a beginning, for a day or so, 2 days. And then when we increased it to 0.02, suddenly the jump came to 28, and then this morning 52. With the voltage still, I think, at 0. We still don't see any voltage. We didn't see any voltage yesterday. So what we all have observed, our Chinese colleagues have observed, what we observe in other positions, is that there is a barrier in transfer of the flow of the plasma in the matter state in respect to the current flow of the plasma. What do you call it? Analyzed. And then we see at what point call the separation of the plasma matter state starts. And then this gives us a new material condition that by current flow we change the characteristics of the matter to a superconductor or a super resistor as we wish, in the bandwidth which we wish. And in so many ways, Chinese colleagues have supplied us with the 1 and 2 rings, which is the iron caustic moving, iron GANS moving into the CH3 environment. We see a current flow between the plasmas. And when they create that center ring push, or what we call the magnetic gravitational field ring, they allow the conversion and the speed of the motion of what we call the current flow. Because at that potential, you create a higher or lower current, or you can dictate what current you want to extract from the material or from the environment. If scientific world of electronics understood what our Chinese colleagues and what Evan has explained, and what we've shown here today, in a matter of months, the world of electronics will change totally at no cost. All you need to do is make very much what Mike showed us in his first presentation with the rings. And that's what I explained. If you understand the behavior of the gravitational flow, or the speed, or the current to create the pressure, then you understand how you can control the thickness, the flow of the current, and the shielding in the space technology and in electronics, because there is no difference. You got to go deeper in the understanding that there is no difference between the resistance and Coulomb's barrier, and the gap in between the plasmatic structure of the GANS. Then you can translate the knowledge into the next step and take the whole understanding into the medical side. Then if you understand this, you go to a cancer cell. You can place a cancer unit change of plasmatic magnetic fields, and change the solidity or the gravitational magnetic field in the plasma of the cancer cell. It's very much, if you had the center line in the universe, and this center line led to creation of matter in different strength, now you can position the matter nearer or closer by the power, by the matter of the current flow. Here is still a field, further out more matter, creation of bigger cancer cells. Instantaneously you can destroy any cancer cell in the body of the man. This is a development that we will show in the coming months in Barry. The machine for it has already been developed. This is how, when you always say, when people start showing things, we start explaining the process. Because at that point, before that point, there is no intelligence to understand. Then you can do the same thing with the rings which our Chinese colleagues have shown. You add the number of rings in your system. And then you extract the current or introduce current the way you want. Then you decide what current flows. You can keep the potential difference in positioning in gravitational magnetic field of the plasma at 0. It's very easy to do. It's the current flow of the plasma, at what speed the river flows, which dictates at what position from the current you'll have the potential difference at the strength you need. It is very much, if you go back into the turbine business and the dam, depends where you want the flow of the water from the dam is constant. You open a gate. Now you have the possibility of where you want to put your turbine. Higher or lower. Bigger drop or higher drop. You want to catch the energy immediately as the water released, or you want to put it at the bottom of the dam to catch a full drop and conversion. It's very much where you want to place your turbine in a steam generators and what blade size. Now you can make a turbine which the blade the same, they don't need to be conical. Then the point comes, does man need to produce kilowatts in the electron motion, or does man wants to work in megawatts in plasmatic motion? This costs a lot of money. Megawatts in plasmatic cost 0. Literally nothing once you produce the plasma. The whole understanding of the new technology is the application of technology and conversion of new systems. I explained this to the knowledge seekers in the past few days. Your body weighs, let's say 80 kilo, 50 kilo, 100 kilo. How much energy do you need to move 50 kilo, let's say 200 meter? How much energy do you need to walk a marathon? If you are moving 100 kilo on the back of a truck to pull it the 25, 26 miles. How can the body of a man with micro plasmatic amperage does the same job? You don't put 100 liters of fuel on your back and you run a marathon. The body converts the energy of the plasma of the hydrogen in your body in nano and less than nano watts into motion of hundreds of kilos of your body for a long time. Because it uses plasmatic condition, energy, and not vibration of electron. It's time to move from what we have learned and put a cross on it and move in the plasma, motion and energy of a plasma, and work in nano and milliamps and milliwatts. Because in reality, if you look at your structure, let's say 1 watt in plasmatic condition is maybe about 1 to 2 million watt in electron condition. It's much easier to work in a 1 watt in plasmatic and create that condition to achieve motion and energy conversion than going to 1 or 2 megawatts in electron vibration. Go back to the pictures of the creation of the center of the universe. Higher energy stars, higher energy systems in the center. The lower the strength to the boundaries of the universe shows masses. Needs a more energy to create the motion, even in a plasmatic condition. If the new generation of scientists which come out of the institute from next month or so understand and grasp this condition, we walk away from burning of the fuel very rapidly. We walk away from understanding that we have attached ourselves to a slow donkey and we always had the facility to move with the jumbo jet. It has been our choice, it hasn't been forced on us. But according to our intelligence, we chose the donkey. Now in the institute, we try to teach you in a very simple way. You don't need to carry a backpack to feed the donkey. You only need a tablet and you can follow, do the same job 100 times, 1,000 times faster and better with a new system of energy production. By moving into a new fuel system, what we call plasma technology. By understanding the concept, not but as we have been told all the time, show us, show us. All the technology within the hand, within the reach of the followers of the foundation in past year is there for you to produce everything. But as I always say, you're too narrow-minded and too much focused on matter condition than the plasma condition. It's the same with the communication lines. You don't need huge towers and so much energy. It's the same situation with the Iranian nuclear the proliferation condition. They are moving in a fast direction in a plasma condition to create a matter condition, and the West has not understood the development. We are going in a direction to the next generation of fuel production. The fuel which is part of our own body, but we have never understood to utilize it. And this is the job of the new institute as it's established now, to teach and bring the new understanding in the evolution of the man's science and knowledge and technology. The simplicity of understanding the basic process of the creation. All of you have seen the MW map for years on the internet. They show the heat flow, they show everything else. But It should have given the first indication. This is the, you don't have a stationary entity sitting there. There has been assumption and measurements that the universe travels at 1 million kilometers an hour or a second or whatever. But where does the motion comes from? And how come this center line is kept constant at the same time? With a simple explanation, now you can understand. And if you understand this process, you go from principle all the way to matter and submatter. And it depends what current flow you want to flow between the center and outside. Because the current flow at each level is constant. It's the potential difference at different levels which gives you the matter difference. This is what you have to grasp. Once you grasp this idea, and the principle is very simple to run anything you like. Your current flow at any level is the same. But the potential difference comes as you travel in different length or position of the plasma. Here you have white, here you have green, here you have blue. And where you want to be in respect how much blue you are prepared to compensate or give energy-wise in plasmatic condition to reach the other states, but you still travel at the same speed. The current is the same, current flow. Once you translate this knowledge into the matter state, then you can even play the same thing in the matter state. That's why Evans tells us when you put the plate in the water, it behaves at zero resistance. Because now the environment of the water, due to gravitational magnetic field of the water, forces the fields which are radiating outside to be resistance inwardly into the center of the plate. And now the whole thing behaves like a plasma. You change the condition, you change the environment. Try to understand and not just say what happened, this happens and I don't know why. Any changes you see, before you look into the change, start looking the condition and the environment which created that change. Then you add to the knowledge of man. Then you can make the difference in the technology and understanding of new systems. What I've seen in past weeks and months, every time we bring somebody on to explain their system, they show, oh, this happens and I see this change. But no one ever has said, okay, I changed the condition, I changed the environment. What that environment added or changed in the characteristic of my material. Then the wrong assumptions don't come in. Nobody writes that we created a black hole condition. You don't create a black hole condition. Black holes in the universe don't exist. It's a strength level which you condition one flow in respect to the other. In the pictures shown by our Chinese colleagues, they see the ring, but they don't understand why something goes from 30 to 50. And then they tell you in the writing what they put in there. You have different materials which the water hasn't disappeared. The water has become part of the GANS state of the matter. You have a sealed cap. Nothing can, we don't see a shrinkage. It's changing the condition has allowed the material for the molecules of the water to be suppressed in between the stronger plasma of the material inside. And then, as we say, lions with the lions, bird with birds. the gravitational magnetic field of the same strength have managed to process and gather into the ring condition in different positions. And then now you have created 30 milliamp flow or a 50 milliamp flow, according to the resistance. If our Chinese friends and the people in the world of electronic understand what is put in a simple way by our Chinese colleagues, you have already changed the world of electronics. You have already changed and shown the first device in conversion and production of different resistors and transistors and the transmission lines power. Without any matter, using plasmatic condition of the GANS. The 2 or 3 pictures we've seen and the explanation by Evans and the pictures from Chinese and the test done here in the lab changes the whole understanding of the world of energy transmission, transformation and conversion. If Evans understood what he said, we spoke yesterday and I understood he does not understand, he hasn't grasped what is done, and now maybe he understands better. You don't need superconductors to go at the room temperatures not being possible. Nanocode, I explained this 2 or 3 workshops before and nobody grasped it. Now maybe we extend it and you understand it more. You do the same thing in the stomach of... What do the acids or enzymes do? The enzymes and the acids, whatever is in your stomach, create the same condition as the water. Push the material, lettuce or a carrot or a meat, to convert, to open up to become gas. That's all it is. There is no difference. The enzymes and the acidity in the stomach and the water in the tank which Evans shown or is tested. You create a condition by to pressurize, to open up the atomic lettuce or a carrot, as we saw in the pictures which Dr. Elia showed a few weeks ago, into separation, atomic structure separation, and into a plasma. Now you can do whatever you like with it. And then if you understood the principle of the conversion, you can change the atomic structure of a lettuce to plutonium, or you can change it to a banana. From the energy aspect level when it gets to the intestine. Because it carries the energy level. Is just the lining of intestine which decides what energy wants to take from where, at what level. So it creates the parallel power magnetic field condition to extract. Magnetic for a copper, magnetic for calcium and the rest. It is time to move with the time of lectures. Next week is exactly 1 year we've been teaching. 52 topic on the knowledge seeking. It's a good time to start a new of working and understanding. Why do you want to go from, let's say, to New York for weeks and be in the hand of the mercy of the weather, where you have a fast boat in your hand and you can go within hours? We have chosen to rely on a curtain and a pole stuck onto the piece of wood, where now we have the choice to go with the most advanced technology with less fuel and with certainty. we've chosen to practice in the world of matter vibration what we call electrons. And the electron itself is a plasma which is trying to find its and the room that it can be free to move. We call it its bandwidth. Why don't we go in the working of the inside of it? Then you decide the bandwidth, because you decide how much energy from inside can be released. If the scientists, electronic and electrical scientists, what we call plasma physicists, understand what has been explained today and since we started, we will see new tools of energy, space, and no need for to be thought of. Because you decide what you convert when you convert at zero resistance. Any questions?
Mr. Keshe?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. So I think he can.
Okay. Yes, if you no longer need the video, could you please turn it off? We're getting some really bad bandwidth today. Thank you.
No problem.
Is there any questions in GoToMeeting?
Oh, we can finish at 9:30. We've never done this before. There are no questions today.
So, let me see. We do have a little video that we could show from ZG Dawa showing hemoglobin and lymph through a nanomaterial creation of nanomaterial, basically with iron. Perhaps we could show that. It's a couple of minutes long.
Where are we? We have lost our live stream.
Can you get the live stream? It's just showing the Spaceship Institute insignia there right now. I'll put on the little video, and it's a YouTube video. We'll have a look at it here, and perhaps you can comment on it.
Can you just hold on one moment, Rick?
Sure.
Just real quick, just give me a moment. That's the one that I sent to you earlier, right?
I believe it was you that sent it. It's from ZG Dawa.
Okay. Okay, so just for sake of getting it on the audio end of things, if you could mute the Skype, because I'm going to play it through the Skype.
Okay, you want me to mute the Skype? All right. And
on live stream.
Right.
So it doesn't.
Okay, I can keep my. Yeah, it hasn't started yet, so I can start it now, Vince. Is that okay? Let's try. I'm not sure if it'll work properly here. Okay, so Yeah, people in live stream haven't heard what I'm saying here. Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to sort it out so we can hear the audio in live stream. So I'll play it in live stream. Gee, I wish you could play it at least to the GoToMeeting people there. Okay, cool. Okay, let's proceed. I'll play the movie over again here.
Words a little bit. Here is this was that wrench that I started back 2 weeks ago. And I've just been kind of letting it cook away there. You can see nice, pretty nice layer of aminos. Not really a lot, but we're definitely getting into the blood zone here. Very dark. I think the steel creates a very dark black because that's what happened on the zinc washers I was using. Once it got through the zinc, it started producing very, very dark GANS, which I think would be the iron, steel. But this stuff is really thick. I mean, practically looking at hemoglobin here. This bolt didn't do anything until it finally got through this layer of whatever it is. I still don't know. I gotta look it up. Now that it's down to the iron, it's you know, producing some whatever looks like CH3. You can see. See if this will focus in on you here. You can see a layer on the nano-coated copper plate. So it did attract some of that to it, but otherwise this water stayed pretty clear except for particulates in the air that fell on the surface. It just was very non-reactive. But now I got all that goo going.
Okay, so that was a little movie that shows some of the different kinds of GANs from that experiment.
Yes.
I'm not sure if there's a particular question or anything in that regard. There was a question in the movie, what are we seeing? And he mentions the different.
Sorry, I was going to say it's interesting seeing the GANs and explaining it in a different way in terms of the body and what you see in the body instead of what we see as elements, as in the CH3 or the CO2, as just a GANS as CO2. It seems that ZG is relating it more to the body. What did you think of the what he called the GANs of the lymph, Mr. Keshe?
I don't know what is used.
I think it was magnesium.
The lymph itself is in the GANS state. Did you put a blood in there, or did you put a, what do you call it, lymph in there? Or
I think he used magnesium, and because it was a magnesium-coated bolt with a nano-coated plate.
Yeah, I said magnesium, but I suspect it might either be chromium or aluminum plated. That'd be more common than magnesium. And
Well, if
maybe
it was
that's
aluminum, I wouldn't expect it to look like that.
okay.
It'd
or
be
maybe
more
we
white to me.
usually use the whitish. I mean, if you let's look at we don't know what it is. He has to explain because we got to understand his point of view.
Okay, he says in the live stream chat.
Can you bring him in, please? Is it possible to come on the live stream, or is too many people?
Well, he's on the live stream right now in the typing in the chat in live stream. He says iron, copper, and magnesium. He says yes, not sure.
Could you bring him in onto Skype? Can he join us that he can explain?
If he's
Only
able,
5 months.
can ZG, can you go to?
I asked him already today.
Oh, to go to meeting or
before the workshop, and
Okay.
he said maybe next time we can try to work on it before next workshop.
okay.
But if you'd like to come in, definitely come in, CG.
We need to explanation why and how it's done. If you remember last Tuesday, 2 days ago, teaching where we showed this container, if you can see it, this is the container where Armen put sugar with plates. Now,
We lost your sound. Lost your sound temporarily, Mr. Keshe. Could you say that again?
okay, you got the picture, the green material, which Armen has produced in the container with 2 copper plates with the power inputs, very low power, and sugar, and very slight amount of salt. He says a very small amount. And in that process, if what we do, we can show it. If you empty the liquid from the material, you see the blood cells. The red blood cells can be seen very precisely. I think we need you to show this. You can see the red spots, and they are there. They wash away ink, and they coagulate again like blood, and it runs like a blood. It's exactly total behavior of hemoglobin. I don't know if you can see it, how clearly you can see it. We showed this in health, but it's the first time we can open it. And if we play with it, if we run it, it dissolves as a blood, but it's still underneath. It goes reddish on the sides, and then it comes back again. So we have a simple way what our colleague in China is showing, that if you create the right environment and you have what we call the copper, which has all the coppers in your material, is not all copper 63. Is the spectrum of the isotopes of copper, as we explained last Tuesday, that some of this copper is on the field, plasmatic magnetic field of the iron, and creates the condition of hemoglobin, or with the protein in the water, with the iron which is in there, behavior of the plasma iron, leads to production of the plasmatic condition of the hemoglobin, what we call blood. It's if you see it, you can, I don't know how we can show this, most probably in the future. You see it runs like a blood into the liquid, and then it solidifies again. It has exact behavior. One of the first things which we do in training in Barry, will be in collaboration with the hospital, medical university there, for analysis of all these new materials. We're setting up a chain of collaborations with them around us there, that we don't need to rely, we can give the material to the experts in the universities which are near us within 30-40 kilometers to analyze and evaluate different materials which we produce. And this is one of the first things which will be handed over to the hospital, to the medical university for analysis. It's the condition which is created. Since making this, because he cannot keep his hand to his unique works, he has to add to see what's the next step. What is done in the past 2 days, what did he put in? Magnesium. He tells us it's magnesium strip. And he has added a small magnesium strip into the same material. And now it's totally different in color. And it's very much greenish, bluish, very, very strange color. And he's produced a new type of GANS. He has created a new condition by adding new material into it. And it's a very small strip, I think, he put in. We still see the blue GANS of the copper oxide. Do you want to shift the camera? Maybe they can see it. It's the same pot where we got this blood system from, but we can go forward. Go close. There's no problem. I can come closer with there. Yeah, you have plenty. You can show it from the top. You see the color of the same greenish material has changed to blue, and as you see, the motor is still running. He wants to create a in a way, what do you call it? By changing a slight amount of the environmental condition, we are literally creating new materials or new conditions for a structure.
You said Armen wanted to create a new.
He wants to create new animals.
New animals. Okay.
This is his thought. He wants to know if he adds magnesium or other thing into the pot with a rotation I call the mixer, and will create a new condition for life.
It would seem like a plant form, perhaps, with magnesium. That's the central part of the chlorophyll
yes,
molecule.
Now it's become indigo blue color at the moment. Any questions? Hello?
Yes,
hi, Mr. Keshe.
Okay, go ahead.
I have a question about something, and this time it's highly theoretical.
Who's speaking?
I want to say it's Ivan from Bulgaria.
Ah, Ivan, you're there. Good morning.
And good morning.
What's your
I just want.
today?
I'm sorry?
I said, what is your headache today? What would you like to understand?
There is something that I cannot explain logically to myself, so I wanted to ask. And when I speak about elements in this question, I refer only to their magnetic gravitational state, not to the matter element. So, in the past workshop, as I understand, when we have element, element has a central mass. Let's say copper has certain center mass, and according to the central mass of the element, it is it has certain magnetic gravitational field around it. So from this position, as I can understand, this element can attract all elements around the straight of its central mass and down. But as we see in
Not
the
really.
Shimba
No.
experiment,
No. I understand. Maybe let me extend in what you're asking, that then we understand your question correctly, and then you carry on. You mean that if, let's say, you have a copper gravitational magnetic field, anything below copper will be absorbed by the copper. Am I correct? Because it's below is the
I do
gravitational
not.
magnetic mass.
No, I do not mean that it's going to be absorbed from the copper. I mean that it has the opportunity, let's say, that maybe if we put in the environment, it can attract elements around, or it can create elements around. Like when we do with the CO2 kit, when we have copper and some element down, we attract elements around the state of the copper, something like this.
You see,
And CO2
maybe
near its
let
atomic
me,
mass.
yeah, okay, let me explain something, maybe we add to the knowledge. If you say this is the GANS of the copper, and this is the, let's say, the GANS of the oxygen, will come out, you can see it. The magnetic gravitational fields of the copper and the oxygen create a gap which the fields can accommodate each other. The gap decides that this is perfect for all the fields from one to the other to create a loop, what we call infinity loop or twinity. That there is no need to link up with another element in a given environmental condition.
Yes.
When you add, let's say, hydrogen, or you add something else in the environment, as the loop is completed, the field of this element here is external, cannot link up because it's already established, even though it might feed into it. The only thing it does, it allows the distance between this gap to be increased or decreased. When you add another powerful field, let's say of a higher order than copper, then you create a new condition. Wood, this loop needs to give to this loop to create a new loop as a total entity. Then you get a new plasma as totality. But the weaker material fields do not become part of once the loop is created. That's why we call it the CuO, or we call it the CO2. Because the combination of two oxygen and a carbon allows the balance condition of the original mother, which was nitrogen. This is important from the gravitational magnetic field strength. You can have as many material as you have around the stable condition, but once the condition is created, the only thing you add to the mass spot will not be connected to the mass.
Okay, this is understood. let's say that we have CO, and then we have certain mass in the center of this element that create the condition around it. But this element, let's say, has a certain mass x. So around in the environment, when we create a gap between these atoms, between these GANs, we are able to attract elements that are around this mass, yes, around this field.
We don't
field.
attract. You don't. Maybe I can explain this. You don't attract, but you can link up to. If you do not attract, you can link up to, and then that linkage is like we had a copper oxide here. Armen added magnesium to it. So now the plasma of the magnesium in a GANS state as it's created sits here. But now this creates a total loop with the totality of this field, not with any of the elements individually. So what we see is a GANS of the three materials together as a center mass. This goes back into what Mike was trying to explain last week. But he went towards the wrong side in explaining into the electron having a heavier mass. These two create an infinity loop. And then what they create as totality with a new material, then this creates a new loop. Then you see new colors as total mass. Because now your mass has a boundary.
Then can you explain a little bit more in a process what happened with the Fukushima experiment when we had CO and other GANs from this kind to the radioactive material, when later it was said that we had some higher elements like gold and silver and stuff like this in matter condition? How these GANs link up to the plasmatic gravitational fields of higher order and just add to the mass, or what was the process?
The point is, you are looking at single structure where you have to look at the total environment. You have to look what the environment puts into that, what energy gravitational magnetic field adds into the process that converts the GANs by mass into a matter state and elevates it to a higher order matter state. It's the environment which you produce. This is what we are doing now in Fukushima. This is one of the solutions we have developed for Fukushima, and very soon we will announce a new development in the same manner by adding environmental energy into the GANS structure or environment to convert matters. This is how your body, through parotid glands and through thymus, changes matter from one state to a higher or a lower order. You have to add, I'll explain this. So you add a plasmatic magnetic field energy into the GANS, which at that state, the GANS itself becomes at the level strength of the matter which it can merge into. And by merging into, by being attracted into, it creates a new neutron condition. Then it changes the state of the matter. Or you can create a condition where a neutron is available to be at the strength to be added. In a way, it's a cold fusion into the center mass of the atomic structure. then you immediately increase and change the isotope level in conversion. And how long that neutron in the center stays dictates the stability of the isotope not to be radioactive for a given period of time or go through a decay process.
It does mean that it's irrelevant what kind of element we have in the core. It can be CO, it could be iron and oxygen, but
Anything.
at the same time, it depends. We can see different matter forming out of this element, forming an environment.
But go back to something I think we add to the knowledge. Oh, hello, white pussycat. We never seen you for a long time. We are in the fish tank. Our cats are coming to see what we're doing. Something we have to go back, and I think you are overlooking. In a mathematic condition of a nucleus, you have protons and neutrons. The GANS, which is the matter, GANS environment which you have created, let's say CO, whatever, CO2 or whatever, in its gravitational magnetic field strength has to be equal to the environment of this nucleus, that it can be attracted to, that it can become part of the structure, proton or neutron. Or you can do in a way that the total gravitational magnetic field energy of the CO2 does not become a neutron, but it gives enough energy to a proton to convert itself back into a neutron. And the residual energy, it becomes increasing the boundary energy of the plasma. Then isotope. Then the material is not radioactive anymore, or in some cases become more intensive radioactive. But in that position, it finds a new loop of the self-production, and then you get a higher speed, or you change the matter from direction of rotation of one of the electrons, because you create a stronger field inside, and then that field has to find a new position in respect to its electrons. All you do is you can, in a way you suck into the energy of the balloon and you add to it, but by adding to it, you add to the energy of a proton enough that it behaves and becomes the plasmatic condition of a neutron, so you have a new isotope. So you lose a proton, now you have a new neutron. Then you have a new material, new isotope, or behavior of a new material. And then you have to find how much energy in the environment you can create that this isotope as a GANS to become a new state of matter. At the moment, we are discussing in a big project here in Italy to do such a conversion. It's a huge industrial disaster for Italy. They've used materials in the past which now has become to be, what do you call it, highly dangerous, considered, and they are. So if you want to reprocess these materials, it's impossible. Literally runs. There is not enough money in the government to pay for such a mistake of the past. So we are looking at exactly what you're talking about, but in the explanation which I explained. We cannot go and change the material which is already part of a construction, but we can create an environment around the construction that adds a neutron energy conversion from proton that the material become non-hazardous. We are following the same path at the moment in our work as we suggested in Fukushima.
Mr. Keshe, what happens to the original GANS material that you show in the diagram there when it influences the other material?
It doesn't influence gravitational magnetic field due to what are called dilution of the fields become matching to the internal environment of the nucleus.
So it actually
It's
becomes
so many-
included in that nucleus. It wouldn't
Becomes
exist on
included.
its own anymore. Okay,
Yeah. So
I got it.
because it changes a proton to a neutron, but it has a surplus gravitational mass, so the color, the what we call the plasma of a nucleus changes, and then you get a different color. That's why you get different color when you add materials into, because now it has the energy of a different strength. Don't forget, when we speak about energy, is both gravitational and magnetical. So in so many ways, then you convert the matter from one to another. This is the job of your parotid glands and the thymus. That's exactly how it's done. You do not convert iron to copper or copper to iron. You create a condition that you use the property of the plasmatic condition nearest to one of the isotopes in behavior or interaction in gravitational magnetic field. Because in the body, you're in a vacuum, and secondly, everything is in a GANS state. You don't change, you don't make a copper, or you make an iron out of a copper. Only thing you do, you add gravitational magnetic field GANS into the mass of the copper, or you take away from it, that the new plasma behaves as iron isotopes.
Yeah, that explains stuff.
Pardon?
That explains a lot, because I couldn't explain it logically how it's happening.
Now you understand.
Yeah, because logically when we look in things, we used to see that from the higher element you can have all elements down, but how can you go to element up? And now it's a little bit more clear.
In a way, you go back into nuclear, atomic, and what you call chemistry, and what you call double bond and single bond and isotopes. All these are created conditions according to the conversion of the proton or energy of release by neutron, which is consumed or used within the structure of the nucleus. In the world of nuclear and atomic and chemistry have not understood this. If you understood what I explained just now, then if you are a chemist, it should become very clear why you have a single and double bond electrons in your chemical reactions, or why sometimes you share. If the energy released by neutron in a nucleus, you create a condition that it can be used or be conserved in the nucleus itself without radiating out, can use that energy to change the bonding from a single to a double bond or a single, and change behavior of chemical interactions. And you can do it if you understood whatever to putting the plate with the resistance and going to no resistance, that we explained the conversion of the fields to go inwards. If you can manage to convert this plasmatic magnetic field inwards in towards a nucleus to conserve it, then you get a different behavior from the electrons and protons, because now the plasma of the nucleus has a different strength, and this dictates the position of the electrons.
I wonder if that would explain when we have the plates, say, halfway out of the liquid.
Hello, we lost you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We said plates and it went.
Oh. Okay, let me try again. When the plates are like halfway out of the fluid, say a nano-coated copper plate, then it'll, out of a saltwater fluid, it'll look much different. The plate above the salt water will look much different than what's underneath. What's underneath will be fairly homogeneous and consistent, but what's above will have a number of layers of, or what would you call it, a gradient, that's a good word, a gradient of colors from the surface of the water. And I'm wondering if that ties in somehow there.
I think partially it's true to refraction of the light of the water, what you see, and partially you could be correct. Because then it's, you still have a flow from the bottom side to the top side, which is the resistance. You're half man, half beast, as I call it.
Yes, right. Well, there must be quite a gradient at the water levels, I'm thinking, between the no resistance to resistance, pretty much zero resistance to full resistance, you might say. And that's quite a gradient, so therefore there must be some sort of voltage or amperage difference there right at the water line, enough to create a difference in the colors of the materials. Because even when if you were to take the plate out and dry the whole plate, you would see that maybe an inch or so of multiple colors or layers above the water line before it evens out a bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you look again at physicality, where in fact even the surface of the water has a curvature of fields from its surface, because it still is matter magnetic gravitational fields. So you have a curvature of fields in the strength a few microns away from the surface, so you get that change. There are a lot of things which you have to go back and understand, that there is no straight line cutting. There's the curvature of the fields. And this goes back exactly what our Chinese friend showed in the picture, 2 rings and a single ring. And then 30 milliamps and 50 milliamps.
Okay.
Well, is there any other question, or?
There is a question from Ed Schumans. I think he's talking about having it in this workshop. He says he's talking about understanding how Armen's static reactor works, and if we look at how it's constructed, he likes to see the middle wire like the representation of our sun. The copper oxide GANS in a way like a transfer medium, like the transitional matter where the low energy is transferred through the layers. All across or crisscross, like Armen would say, in the small system from the middle wire to the outer layer, the nano-coated or Coulomb's barrier of the core. My question would be, is the coil a representation of the Kupler belt? And if so, is the Kupler belt a magnetic barrier at the level of the carbon strength? This would explain a lot to me of how to think at what magnetic and gravitational strength level of our solar system, as well as the working of how one can operate Armen's reactor core, a core reactor. Do you understand that, or is that, should I try to go back through some of that, or what do you think?
Explain.
We could get Ad to explain it more in the next workshop, perhaps, or if he's on the go-to-meeting or somewhere, he could probably explain it better. But basically, the basic idea being, we know about Armen's reactor has that center core wire and the coil around it. So Ed is saying he sees that middle wire like the sun, and the GANS as the transfer medium, like the transitional matter, where the low energy is transferred through. And it talks about the Coulomb barrier, the nano-coated Coulomb barrier of the core. So is the coil a representation of the Kupler belt? That was the basic question.
Depends how you want to.
What was that? Someone came through there in the background. Is that on the go-to-meeting?
The Kuiper belt. Yes, hi Rick, it's Emmanuel. The Kuiper belt, I believe it's the outer asteroid ring of large bodies surrounding the solar system.
Right, I guess I misread that, or it's mispronounced.
Somewhere, I think in, I think it's one of the books we have referred to this. I can't remember where. First of all, in system as is connected now with Armen, the center line, the center wire is receiving the energy, the plasmatic magnetic field forces, is not radiating outwards. If you look at the structure, I tried to put it under the camera, you can see it. We have connected wires from the center line into the load. And the power is coming from what you call Kuiper belt into the center. If you change it in the way you talk about to connect the supply to the center and force the nano layers to be produced from center outwards, then we create a condition in the outer ring to absorb all the energies which are released by the nanomaterials, or what you call the transition materials, into the ring. Then the outer ring, which is here, becomes behaving like a Kuiper belt. Yes, but it possesses both gravitational and magnetical field. We measure certain amount of, because we did it yesterday, we measure between the center line and the outer fields, which is just the matter condition of the copper tube. If I can turn it, you can see it here. Very blurry. It's not okay. Okay, can you see it now? Can you see it? Maybe we have to go a bit closer this way. Is it better now?
Well, we can see it a bit better, but the resolution's starting to come in a little bit better there now. Yep, that's a bit more clear.
Yeah, because it was distant. So what I said here, we measure in one of our measurements yesterday. We start doing the current flow between the transition material and the matter condition of the outer core, which this represents. If you look at this white one, this is just a copper wire going around the tube outside, which is not nano-coated. And number 8 is not the center core. Number 8 is just one screw here. I don't know if you cannot see it, but it's a little screw placed here, which measures the current flow in the transition material. We are measuring the current input into the coil. We are measuring the current flow out of the coil from the center. And then this screw here, number 8, measures the current flow in respect from A to B, from the outer coil to the inner core, or what you call the transition material. We see the whole spectrum from one to another and what we get out of it. At the moment, we have not created enough gravitational magnetic field pressure or conversion of nanomaterials from the outer coil to be able to pressurize the nanomaterials on the surface of the center wire to squeeze fields through to create an AC in the outer core or a DC flow that we see as a power in the what do you call it, in the resistor, or being able to run a light. So what we are doing, we are pressurizing, releasing more and more atomic structure to literally create that push, a spherical push on the center column, that we can get an AC or a DC light that we can run. Then we show the conversion and transition and transmission. So the number 8 here is the measure of the current flow between what you call the sun and the Kuiper belt, but our Kuiper belt is the center core and what you call center line, and the source is outside as a coil internally. Maybe if we connect a DC flow here, we should be able to use it as a load, as a scavenger, and we see if we can lit up the light. And then we have confirmed the conversion of the DC to AC as a simple, this becomes a simple inverter. Maybe this is what we're going to do by disconnecting the resistor and going into a scavenger LED light system, which is already here. I don't know if you see it. We already put it on. The smaller amount of current produced in the coil will lit up the LED light. Any other question? I'll switch up.
I have a question. question.
Oh, good morning.
One of the
Yes.
gentlemen had an experiment which led to collection of water from the environment. So basically, it was a regular container, as far as I understood, with a copper nano-coated electrode and a chicken wire nano-coating, I mean iron zinc electrode, up to here as usual. But accidentally, I understand, he had a bigger box that he used to boil the copper wires for coating, and he introduced the first container in the second one, which was completely empty. Apparently, the caustic probably nano-coated the plastic, the polypropylene walls of the bigger box in the inner side. So he is saying, he has also a video, that in, I don't know what amount of time, water started to come on the bottom of the bigger box, which is empty or was empty, and after that water started to collect. And I asked him why, and apparently the people don't know why. Can you please elaborate for us to understand how come if in the smaller container he is collecting CO2 GANS or maybe iron or whatever, and if he is inserting that container into an empty container, which is plastic container, which is nano-coated into inside, he is able to collect water from the atmosphere.
Okay, let's go and explain. Let's talk exactly what we're talking about. He had a tank. Can you see the picture?
GoToMeeting is frozen. Maybe the gentleman in the live stream. So we have a regular container, as you guys are doing. Okay.
And he produces CO2. He puts caustic in this container to produce nano-coated material.
No. So he has a regular container, right? As you guys are doing in Italy. One electrode is copper nano-coated. One electrode is chicken wire nano-coating and salt water. Yes, and he was producing whatever, CH3, whatever you guys are producing there in Italy as well. Up to here, nothing special. So now he had a bigger box of polypropylene that he used for nano-coating. So he introduced this smaller.
Hello?
So he introduced. Okay, is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay, so he introduced this small container, which was filled with water and salt, table NaCl, natrium chloride, regular, in a bigger box, which was empty.
Yeah.
He used that bigger box to do the nano-coating, but now the box is empty. Maybe it's just nano-coated on the inside. So after some time, he was collecting in the bigger container, which was initially empty, started to collect water from the atmosphere. So can you explain that? Because logically we don't have an explanation for that.
I think, Lucian, you've been with us 52 weeks. We give you the honor to explain. You should have been able to...
Well, I have only one explanation.
Okay, explain it. Let's see. Because now you teach us. We taught you enough. You should be able to explain this.
So basically...
knowledge. How do you see it? You're a teacher in the institute, and a student asks you this question I did in lab. Explain, you should know. Or ask the girls in your office to explain it, you'll do it very quickly.
Well, I will explain something quick. First, I will determine the gravitational magnetic field of the copper plate, which I don't know it. So I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
My personal opinion is that the copper nano-coated plate has the strength of the gravitational magnetic field to attract any gases and vapors, whatever this will be. Again, I may be wrong 100%. And initially, if that small box stays on the table, probably the water vapors are attracted into the surface of the water and, how to say, sinking into the small container. Now, if the small container is inserted into the bigger container, could be a possibility that the bigger container could be a boundary, and as it's nano-coated into the inside, some of the water vapor that are attracted from by the smaller container, let's say, is hitting the target. In other words, it's falling not into the perimeter of the small container, but into the perimeter of the bigger container. Other explanation, I don't have it, so maybe you have a better one.
You're not far wrong. You have understood the concept. Why do you lack in confidence? You're not far wrong. What has happened?
As I said, as I don't.
No, you have enough knowledge. Have enough. At the end, you can be wrong, or I can be wrong. There is nothing wrong being wrong unless we learn from it. So you are in a way you're correct. You got to look at the environment and what that environment has created. You have a CH bond of the plastic. You have a condition of the creation and absorption of the amino acid in the mesh through the water of the smaller container. As you can extract nitrogen and carbon and hydrogen and oxygen to create amino acid on the top layer as you're extracting CO2, now you have a free environment of the carbon and hydrogen in the vicinity, because now you have encapsulated it. Then what happens is that the free hydrogen.
You have on the screen the.
I have in the screen what you explained to me.
This is from Sandor. He's done a video last month showing the collection of water from the air. The same situation you're talking about. He has the static reactor inside of a larger plastic container.
We're trying to find you. Wait, we lost you.
Oh.
Oops, just wait. We were there and we're gone. Close this, okay. Okay, now we are back with you.
I put the link for you in the workshop, Mr. Keshe. Okay, thank you.
Okay, explain it. Yes, okay.
So, I could have Sandor speaks about it. I don't know if he explains it or what.
Workshop, Mr. Keshe. Okay, thank you.
Let's see what he's saying here. Not too much. It's just showing it. Well,
I am here on the go-to-meeting, so we can tell about
Great,
if you
thanks.
Let it go, okay? If you let the video run.
Okay.
It happened by fortune to observe this interesting phenomena. I made a normal copper wires, nano-coated copper wires, and chicken wire setup to collect GANS. What was interesting, this was not producing GANS on the bottom, but it was producing some protein on it, and there were many little bubbles which were collected on the copper wire, and this became more and more dense. So the bubbles became smaller, smaller, and finally became like a paste. And I placed this into that blue container. The blue container was used previously for nano coating inside. So it was already treated with hot caustic. And after several days, I was thinking that maybe my smaller plastic box is leaking. So I wiped it, I put it back, I checked it, it was not leaking. But within more other days, I observed again there is some water below. And if you would see this video further, you can see where I lift it up and I let it down. It seems like the small box acts like a magnet. So you see water comes out, but when I put the box on the top, the water goes immediately under the small container. You see now there may be some delay on the live stream probably. So later I will show on the video repeated times I'm lifting and putting back to let you see this effect. I don't think it's capillarity. It's some interesting thing because it actually pulls the water from a longer distance. I didn't check that water for its quality. So I didn't taste it. So you see, it seems like it's sucking the water below it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
Did you see the water coming off the walls, or is it created around the container, the center container?
On the between, it's created in the space, in the tiny space between the two containers. So it's not on the walls. Just
so it's created. Okay. Now, what I would like to ask you a question is, look at the shape of your container and place the container in totally flat, put a caustic in the container, which you can, it's totally flat, and put your container back again on a flat surface.
Okay, I will do that.
And then tell us what you get.
Okay.
I think maybe I'm wrong, if I'm right, in the environment between the nano layer of the plastic outside and the environment of the magnetic gravitational field of the inside, you produce a gravitational field, the strength of the water. So you're converting the oxygen and hydrogen in the environment into, as we did with protein, now outside you're converting them back into water. Then there is another possibility. The energy released from the plastic in that structure with the energy released from the container creates a condensation environment between the two on the steps you have, which allows the moisture in the environment to be condensated and be shown as water.
I thought about condensation, but I measured the temperature.
It's a conversion. There are two ways. You have created a gravitational magnetic field of the water, which is a GANS of H2O, and then you're extracting. Or you have created a temperature that is just enough to convert. I think what you can do, just put your container on the side, because on the side of it is a flat plastic. It's not curvature like this. if you look at if I looked at the picture of your container, put your container on the side and put this plastic on it, the smaller container on the flat surface. And you see if you get the same condition of creating water.
I can get a flat surface if I turn the box upside down, because all inside it has this ridges, creating the space.
Yeah, but no, on the wall is flat. You want to be in the caustic environment which you have created, because the wall is already narrow layered.
I can, sorry. I can put it flat on the side, not on the bottom, but on to tilt the blue box to stay on its side, and its side is flat. So that is
that's what I said. That's what I meant. Put it on its flat side, and let us know what you do, what the results are.
Okay, so in the evening I have what to do to make space for this new one.
Yeah, because
all the three spaces with the CO2 kits now.
Yeah, you have a CO2 at the bottom of the container, Sandor.
Yes.
You have managed to create CO2 at the bottom of the container, the smaller container.
It may be.
You don't see any white material?
Any white inside the small box.
There is any, or there is some?
What it is, at the beginning there were many bubbles on both electrodes, and mainly on the copper wires, which are thin copper wires, and very near each to the other. And later those bubbles started to become smaller until they condensed into some kind of paste. It's like a putty. It's sticking on the electrode. It's not falling away.
But you have no CO2 at the bottom?
No CO2 at the bottom. I have no deposit at the bottom. Some protein is on the top only.
Yeah, okay, but was this container outside the box with doing nothing, or from the beginning you put it in there?
It was outside as well. So later I put into this box when I had to move it from the main kitchen table. I did this experiment while my wife was away for several weeks from home, and the day before she came back, I cleaned the house. I put them all in my room, and so then I put it in the box.
How long did it take to get the water center?
3-4 days or something like that.
Okay.
There is two possibilities, but I have seen this a few times, but I explain it as because in my case, where I make the caustic, I have a lid. I can close it. And when you put I tell you something, just talk among yourselves. I'm going to show you something, because we have something like this here. Just one in a minute.
Well, one thing that comes to mind just now is that we do know that caustic or sodium hydroxide tends to absorb water. So if it had a caustic coating on the tub, perhaps that in itself would be absorbing water.
That's an interesting point.
Was the tub...
yet it was washed...
I can't see that either.
I washed that blue container thoroughly of caustic, and I also neutralized with some vinegar to be sure.
Right, okay. Well, that's what I was wondering about. So
you also added vinegar.
Clarifies that, I think.
So did you rub the nano layers a lot in that bucket? Like, can you tell that it's not nano-coated, Sandor?
I didn't test it with the voltmeter. I just had such a nano coating process inside with some potassium caustic. I had, meanwhile I did it, I had a top on it, and I had some other PET tray, like an egg holder, and I had many small wires inside. Then I removed them and I washed the container, and I used that, I washed it well. I washed it very well, thoroughly rinsing with a lot of water. Later I used that blue container to collect the leftovers from maybe 7 or more such a smaller plastic boxes. So I dismantled some previous experiment where I had in series several cells like this little one.
Yeah.
And again, I washed it well. For safety, I washed it, I don't remember when, but once I rinsed it with some vinegar as well.
Okay.
So it's been washed and then recoated and washed and recoated, basically.
I don't know if recoated, but it was containing such a GANS, because other such a plastic boxes had some GANS. This was one which I set up later.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, we can see the video, Mr. Keshe.
Yep, it's on now.
Video. If you look at this box, we have 2 boxes. Can we have the other box as well? We have 2 boxes. These 2 boxes have been, I made this about 3-4 months ago, and they're sitting in the lab, in the main lab. If you look inside, we try to get you a good picture of it inside. This one has electric condition. This has been used for caustic the same as yours. And what you see is the huge amount of conversion like a salt. And if I move the container exactly as you've done, it's nothing on the
Mr. Keshe, can you check the mic, please?
Yes, can you hear me? Because
it's just popping a lot.
This is it's popping, okay, because I'm moving around the lab in here. Because nowadays, as you explained, is it better now?
It's better.
Popping a bit, okay, I'll put it there, it doesn't pop. So what you see, we have the same condition, nano-coated material inside with pipes. What we have here is condition of like caustic. But here, the material was caustic. It's inside the caustic, not in the salt. And what we have is dry sediment of caustic here. So we have created a salt condition like a universe. You don't see any water. If you put this down, please. Now, in this one, can you just put it on the floor? In the second one, these two were set up at the same time. If you open it, both again the outside container is caustic, but inside I put a drainage system with a LED light, if you can see it. But when I lift this container, like can you move this container, the bigger container? You see the production of water. We have exactly what you have, if you can see it. It's
even
a
on a flat bottom, or is that container, does it have a little ridge on it so that there's a little bit of space between the bottom of the container?
But this one doesn't have. This is totally flat. This is totally flat. Because we see the production of water, but it's very limited. Where we have not drained energy from the environment, we have total dry container, but salt is created. Where we allow drainage of energy from the inner container like this with a LED, we have created a condition of just creating water. It has not dried up. And this experiment is now nearly 3-4 months. The reason for this I did, what I wanted to know, if we can, by draining energy or adding energy to a system of exactly similar condition, we can create a composite of solid and liquid in a space to be able to sustain life and create life or materials. So in what you see in your experiment or what you show us that you have in your water, I have the same experiment going here for a few months, sitting on a table, looking for an outcome to see what it is. And it's exactly the same condition as yours, with a difference that you had a salt container with a material in it. I just dumped a few nano layers, as you see inside the green bottle container. And I created a condition that there's going to be a protein in there because of the atmosphere. But what happens if I add energy to the protein or I withdraw the energy from the protein? Would I get life or not? And in draining the energy from the protein, we see water. We see liquidity. In draining the energy from the same, not draining and allowing the environment of the material holding to its energy, we see solid state of matter, which is like a salt. And because if there was going to be a caustic, as Rick suggested that the caustic absorbs moisture, we should have had a moisture in the first one as well. But we don't. We see solid state and this grows. And you've seen it in the first container. It's grown to the full floor. It's totally white, like salt. And if you go back to the video of the last week, where we showed the water of life and the containers I've created, you see the same kind of a structure, where energy is added and not is withdrawn from the liquid environment of the water. The salts or solid state of matter is naturally created. And then if you have the same condition, the condition inside both boxes is exactly the same. Both used for caustic, exactly what you did, to nano-coat materials. Then 2 boxes which caustic was put in, salt was put in, what do you call it, salt and liquid was put in, nano-coated material was put in, 1 no energy balance difference, and 1 drawing the energy, trying to use the scavenger circuitry to don't leave any energy inside the water, inside the container. And so what you have achieved in your container, you have created, my container here is a closed environment, it has a lid. It's not open to atmosphere. So the water created is limited. Yours is open to atmosphere.
But Mr. Keshe,
pardon?
The ridges, though, would also have an effect due to the dynamic condition between the bottom of the bucket and the bottom of the outside bucket. So yes, could that not allow a dynamic mag-grav condition?
Yeah. What happens somewhere at the bottom, there is a gravitational magnetic, because in the green one, which is a solid, we don't see any water, even underneath the container. On the other one, we see water even underneath. So somewhere in the circuit you have created, you are draining energy from the environment of the inner liquid, which is creating a gravitational magnetic field underneath. Because if you look, the walls are dry. Even the walls in my container are totally dry. There is no moisture, but the water is at the bottom. So you create an environment around the box, which is of the, what do you call it, H2O, and you make a conversion by plasmatic magnetic fields and not condensation. Because there is not enough or whatever has been inside the box as components of hydrogen and oxygen is already converted into water and there is no more. But with your condition, it's an open environment. Most probably if I leave my box open, I'll have the same as you, water will be everywhere. You have managed to create a gravitational magnetic field of the water.
And isn't it also managing to create the basis of the Oasis kit, the
Good
Oasis
morning.
project?
Good morning.
Because you're taking off power and you're creating water at the same time.
Good morning.
A mini oasis.
Good morning.
An oasis for your
Mr. Keshe,
pet mouse.
Before we run to another topic, I have another question which is related to this one. And a lot of people, they have obtained the CH4 GANSes into the process of experimenting. So based on what you showed, I mean, Rick showed today with that electrodes into that cylinders, in order to transform this CH4 GANS in the CH4 gas, I mean, gaseous form, should be putting 2 electrodes in a cylinder and apply a specific voltage at a level in which the magnetic pressure of the recipient will be balanced by the energy introduced, and this
you
powder,
missed the point, sir. You have missed the point. You have to convert a gas to a GANS or a GANS to a gas. You need to create a plasmatic gravitational magnetic field environment, not a current flow which is a vector. You need a totality, not a ray. The current, this is the problem with the present world of electronics. You push, you vibrate the current, but you do not allow the vibration, you don't measure the sphere of the vibration. You measure the totality of what the vibrations as all the atomic structure produce. One single atom is enough. You can't add a current or a voltage. If you add a current to a matter which is nano-coated, most probably you can reach the condition of converting gas to a GANS or a GANS to a gas. And then you have the problem of converting it into a matter state of the gas to create a solid state matter. You can do it, it can be done, I've done it.
So practical, how one could do it? I mean, all of us, we have like...
Okay. You've seen how Armen uses the heat to dry GANS or evaporate the water from the GANS? Use 2.
Yes, he said.
1. Add, let me say, use a nano-coated material to convert your vectors into a plasma, 3-dimensional. Then you can add or extract from a GANS the energy you want to bring it to a state of matter or convert it back to a state of gas. Go back to the first caustic you did. Go back to the first nanomaterials you converted to a GANS. Battery or a light or a motor, and that energy was a surplus energy which was released when the nanomaterial left the body of the matter state to become a GANS state. You have to put not only the energy to revert the GANS into a nano, now you have to take or add energy the way it was added to separate the atomic structure to a nano structure to convert your nano gas into a matter state.
So you are suggesting to use a metal which has that has an atomic mass greater than copper?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You need to look at the caustic you used. Look at the field, the condition you created, not at the matter. It's exactly what I was talking earlier on with Ivan from Bulgaria. You missed the point. It's the same process. You are looking at the end product. Start looking at the totality. When you put the metal, the copper, in a caustic, what have you done? The heat of the hot water, the heat of chemical binding, opening of the sodium, most probably potassium, oxygen, and hydrogen, which is most of the energy from the hydrogen released. You added those energies into the metal for it to open up to become nanostructure. You come from a point of taking energy from a GANS to a nano. Now you have to add the right energy or extract the right energy to convert a nano into a matter state. So you need a nano layer coated material to convert, or you need to create a plasmatic environment that can extract or add energy into the GANS for it to be converted to a solid state gas.
So any, how to say, practical suggestion, because we don't have any way of, how to say, determination. Maybe you can give us some guidance?
One of the best ways to do is to use a composite GANS materials. The same as you use composite plates. To create CO2, you use copper, nano-coated, and zinc. Use the same thing in reverse. Or make a cage for it. This is what you got to do in space. You have to bring the fields to a GANS state, convert the GANS to a nano, and nano to a matter to be able to construct a building. It's like a furnace. You have to in the box. Our friend has put the material by accident in a container, like the guy who discovered the penicillin. He came back and he had the penicillin in his container, the fungus. And I've done the same thing deliberately by closing the container. You create a condition. Till you don't learn this, you will have a huge problem working with plasma technology. You do not produce materials. You produce environments to lead to production of the material you want. Condition you want.
So, Mr. Keshe, I think we, how to say, we understand that, but let me explain you what we don't understand, so you can elaborate on that. So, basically, let's take a very simple example. If we nano-coat, let's say, copper, we will get some sort of gravitational magnetic field. If we nano-coat the plastic container inside, we'll have a gravitational magnetic field and magnetical field in the strength of carbon and hydrogen. Let's say if we do nickel chrome, but as we don't have how to say, a mental representation of
I
what
don't want to
strength.
spoon feed you. I don't want to spoon feed you, but I'll show you the ways. And when you get there, like now, I'll show you the box. Exactly what was found accidentally. Go back to what Evans said. Evans, in the beginning of this talk, explained something very simple, but it just went over your head. Now I repeat his sentence, maybe you understand. If you keep the electrodes near each other, there is no potential difference. If you keep the plates next to each other, you see no potential difference. But if you move them away, you see a potential difference and different current flow. I think you got your answer. What potential difference do you want in plasmatic magnetic field condition to convert a GANS into a matter? He created a cage. He's created the environment between two electrodes in a GANS or in a liquid. And in the talk today, Marco just gave me the papers and I put it on the last page you gave me. This one, yeah? If I go back on the drawing, you already have your answer. This morning I gave you the answer to this. It's the same current flow. If you look at it here, it's the same current flow. It's the potential difference which gives you different material.
Yes, I understand the concept you are talking about, but my question will be: does have any importance the material or the nano coating? Let's say.
In a way, yes.
From what?
In a way, yes. No. You can use the same different current or different distance, or you can use different materials, nano-coated or non-nano-coated, with different current. But remember one thing. You have, this is the fundamental I brought to you this morning several times, and somehow it's for you has not gone in yet to be understood fully. You have to work. You have no choice but to work in nano mega plasmatic environment, nano and micro watts. Not into putting your volt power supplies in half a watt, half an amp, and 3 or 4 or 10 volts. You have to change the habit, and then you'll get like a rabbit very quickly to it. You have to go and look for the lowest denomination current voltage you can produce. Then you achieve it. Then you can convert GANS into a matter state. This is not a cement factory that you put the powder in there and you create as much heat as possible to dry the water to get cement at the end if you've been to a cement manufacturing. In this process, you have to extract or add plasmatic magnetic fields, gravitation, take and give. And then you decide with your plates how much gravity you're giving, how much magnetic field and magnetical field you're taking. As I said, you're in a schizophrenic condition. You're getting there slowly. You have to work on nano, micro watt. Atomic structures are connected to each other in atomic wattage, which is in micro. You go in with a hammer. This is why people in CERN and other places have a problem to create fusion. And you do it very simply. Have you looked at your CO2? How can a hydrogen how can a carbon, plasma of a carbon, attract the plasma of oxygen, two of them, and make one plasma out of it? This is the first time maybe you understand you've been achieving cold fusion at room temperature, and none of you ever understood it fully. There's the dream of the world of science, and all of you are doing it in your rooms, in your kitchens, and you haven't understood. And you just talk about it as it's gone nothing. All of you have achieved the dream of man in producing cold fusion. You all have produced the nano wattages from millions of cold fusion, which you led your LED lights. This is shocking to a lot of you and to the world of physics.
So Mr. Keshe, I'm familiar with that.
Understand? You haven't. If you're familiar and you understood, you should have no problem to convert the GANS into a matter state. Doesn't matter in what it is.
Right. So, based on what you just explained in the last maybe 5 minutes, now I understand what you're trying to say. I'm going to do the experiments and report back to you.
Ask what do you call it, Pentagon, to give you a little bit more money to do, and ask your secretary to do a little bit more work. It should be easy.
I was hoping we'd do something.
It's in the hand of your guys, not us. We are prepared to do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keshe. That was clarifying the two issues for today. I give the microphone to other guys.
Thank you very much. My best regard to your bosses.
Yes, best regard to your bosses there.
But they're pretty stingy with the sodium hydroxide and stuff, though.
No, you are the boss. We know why you're here. It's okay. We share knowledge freely.
No problem.
Okay.
Yes, much better like that.
Okay, the next question is from Zhang. Zhang, I unmuted you. If you could ask your question for Mr. Keshe, please.
We can't hear.
Yes, I'm waiting for him to unmute his mic. Okay, maybe I'll just ask a question. No problem. Excuse me. It says, Mr. Keshe, I am Mr. Huey. Now I am in US. I have a question, which is why inside the reactor must be mixture of GANs? Why can we not only use a single GANs? For example, use only CO2 or use cup or use CH3.
He means copper oxide, CuO.
Or copper. Okay, yes, yes. So why could we not use just a single GANs in a reactor instead of a mixture? My answer would be that it wouldn't be a gradient. You would have to have a different structure.
No, you can't. Can use single.
You get a larger bandwidth with multiple. Is that not part of it?
Let me explain. First of all, Mr. Hui, I hope you have a nice holiday with your family in the state. I think he's in Hawaii at the moment. You have to understand, we are talking Mr. Hui, H-U-I, I presume.
Yes.
I would like to, you should know who he is. He is a great contributor to the foundation. He's translated or has arranged the translation of all the medical workshops and the children workshops into English translation. And he has sent them, all of them, freely to Dr. De Bandop in New Zealand to be put out on Amazon, and we have a great pleasure to have him as part of the Keshe Foundation supporter. He's a scientist himself, and we collaborate with him in the coming time for the production of heavy power supplies for China. I respect his cooperation highly. in respect into what Mr. Hoy has asked, is that by adding different materials in the cores, because the Earth gravitational magnetic field is a composite gravitational magnetic field, we try to achieve near composition. And that's the only reason we use it. And on the other hand, if you, for example, look at reactor 1, which is hanging in the, what do you call it, in the Keshe Foundation Center here, something which most of you have missed is that most of the interaction, as I explained before, happens at night time. Most of the lifting and the shifting and movement of the system is during the evening till early morning. The gravitational field strength of the sun affects the performance of the in-field free plasma inside, where at night we only deal with the gravitational magnetic fields of the planet, which rises up because of the retraction of the fields of the sun. So by using a composite, we at this moment, without using any current, we influence the field strength to cover as much as we can. If we can use a better mixture of composite like the Earth composite and a strength, we'll achieve lift in no time. We have a very limited bandwidth, as Rick was explaining. When we use GANS of hydrogen, deuterium, I've seen Brad has said, I'm going to receive deuterium, then I'll tell you how it works. You'll have a big time trying to GANS it because of the way you receive it. Then, when we have access to deuterium to be able to do it, because of the homogeneity of the fields, then the current flow dictates the gravitational magnetic field current flow, not a current flow as an amperage. Then that we can dictate what field strength we want to mimic. And then we produce that condition for anywhere in the universe. We can create the condition of a copper or gravitational magnetic field composite structure of the Earth. And lift becomes very easy and very rapid. We could achieve this in the radioactive nuclear reactors which we developed with the Iranian government. Because we produce a nano hydrogen in the structure through ionization, and we control it, only we deal with the hydrogen. Here in GANS materials we don't have that possibility, but we have a stronger field. When you have a GANS and you have a hydrogen, the same as what we tried to, we had at the beginning of the, oh, look at our chickens. Oh, they're all coming. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sorry about that. Now our chickens have come to say hello. So what happens is that when we are in the institute and we receive the collaboration of hopefully the Italian governments and in collaboration with other governments, that we can bring the next step of development of the gaseous reactors and the GANS reactors together, then we can use single atomic hydrogen, as Mr. Hoy has explained. This is at this moment trying to do with the, as I say, trying to cope with the stepmother when there is no mother. And at the moment we have no governmental organization as a mother to support the foundation to deliver this technology in its true sense and in a simple way. So We are teaching on both ends. Hopefully when we go to what do you call it, to the university, we have a different opportunity as a university to find a mother, as we say. That we can have access to a easier way plasmatic deuterium that we can show with a single hydrogen, with single GANS of material. This is a dilemma which is the world of science in advanced level like us has been trapped into, and hopefully with the university we move to the next step. If I receive deuterium or I organize to receive tritium, I'm classed as an Iranian nuclear physicist trying to do terrorist activities. But what I see, people like Pratt can receive deuterium out of nowhere, being part of the American security services. This is a strange situation we are in, but in a way humanity is paying for the stupidity of its own leaders. The whole structure is very simple. You can go, we have to go into the situation of atomic hydrogen the way we create in the what do you call it, in the gas reactors which we have in the first set of reactors. And then we go to the dimension of tritium to produce the free plasma, but that free plasma is a composite free plasma. We need to be able to dictate the plasma to its uniformity through the atomic hydrogen, deuterium. But to be able to GANS it, I've seen some text on the different chat rooms, on the different groups of the Keshe Foundation. I hope you can achieve in what you're trying to produce the GANS of deuterium as the way you are going. But you'll have a long way to go. Unless you accidentally come across it without you knowing what you've done. You need deuterium. But deuterium in a GANS state will not come unless it comes from the tritium step down, and that's the need for the Japanese government and the Iranian government and the American or the Russians, which have access to plutonium conversion. Then you can use a single element, single plasmatic condition. Any other question?
I just want to make a joke, Mr. Keshe. When we speak like this, we understand you.
Oh no, not a joke.
Pardon? What do you say?
I was speaking, when you speak technically and speak scientifically, we understand you very fast.
Yeah.
What you said. It's very clear, understood what you said.
Yes. I speak scientifically to your scientists, and I speak scientifically to the politicians who understand the language of science. And somewhere you two have to meet for the human race to be successful. There are two languages. You want me to speak the language of a child, I teach a child. You want to speak in the diplomatic language of scientifics, diplomats, to understand the language exactly the way you understood the explanation of scientific development. A technology like this, at this moment, at this junction, has to be understood by the politicians that is no threat to them, and has to be understood by the scientists how to show the politicians there is no threat. And in this teaching like now, we have one of the most powerful men listen to this program. They got the message very quickly before you even understood how to convert the GANS to a matter. I speak in the language that Everyone from a professor in physics to a professor in biology to a layman on the street and a woman in the kitchen can understand that they can help themselves. But each one has to participate in it. Without a woman who understands what the cooking is, what it does, there will be no politician because he'll die of hunger. Because one of these women is a wife somewhere of the politician. So I speak the language for those of every level to understand. You cannot advance in a direct way if the politicians and the governments do not allow you to have tritium. In the correct way, deuterium. If any of you think you can achieve it, we are showing you the way in a very slow way, but support of the governments are needed to jump the last step. And it has to be done in collaboration. Not the ones who achieve it first become enemies. I've been told when you go to ethics and the politics, there is no value because this is not a teaching of the science, it's the teaching of the totality. You have to understand how the position between the governments and the individuals are needed. You have to understand as individuals what is your responsibility, and you have to understand what is the ethics of using the system. You're all after free energy to screw your governments and your own self in a later date. Because there are no finances in the government to pay for your doctors and engineers to build the roads and keep the hospitals. So you have to learn the ethic the correct way in what you are given to support your own nation and humanity. You all want everything to show us we have everything free and then we can do with no doctors, no cancer, nothing. And then you become the abusers of the future because now you have everything. The ones who don't have, because did not receive the incomes from it or a support from it, there are no hospitals to support them. It's you who have to learn the totality, not selfishness of individuality in what you are interested in. That's your problem, not mine. And that covers the leaders, the businessmen, the scientist, the layman, and totality, you make a society. And you have to know how to behave in respect to each other. If you are only interested in how to get a free energy, you're another abuser. And if that's your purpose, please do not come to the forums. If you are there to make a change in totality, to make your government understand not to abuse its people, to be able to contribute to your government that it has enough not to be abusive, that it has everything to provide for nationals, and you learn enough to support your family and your society, at the same time you have enough time to put back into the whole society and your life, then you're in the right place. The ones who say you only speak about science, you're abusers who have come here to learn to what to do, to escape paying taxes or serve your nation by putting something back in. So you're in the wrong place. You don't fit into the ethos of the foundation. Please do not turn up. But if you are here to learn, to teach your leaders... No, I don't need you to point your attention to anything. I just explained to you, if you come into the Kashmir, now we are going in the status of university, you'll be taught by different nationalities and different problems. You have to accept the foundation as you come to learn the medicine, the health side, the material side, the energy side. There is an ethic to it as well, and there is a running of the ethics as well. You have to do it, accept it as a whole, or you become an abuser, you're finding a way to abuse the system. And this is not a place for the foundation. You're in the wrong society.
Yes, I was just to explain you a specific tax feature in European Union. Any company that makes profit and pays taxes has the right to direct 2% of the income tax the company does pay to a specific entity, foundation, hospital, and other institution, as you said. I mean, legally and lawfully. And that will address what you said. If anyone does obtain profit from such a technology, instead of going through the government, as you pointed, can specifically allocate that amount of money to the research entity, being yours, I mean, Keshe Foundation or hospital, or as you said, any kind of institution, healthcare, and that goes directly to funding the entity.
Let me explain to you something. November of last year or the year before, EU, by the instruction of the British government, had a specific classified meeting in respect to what are we going to do with the technology of the Keshe Foundation and its health applications. We have a memo internally, it was sent to us by the people who were involved. The answer they have come up to, EU, is we leave it, it might die, it never come up to federation. Because the damage to the income and the pharmaceutical in the EU by simple technology like this can be horrendous. Which means the rich cannot abuse the pharmaceutical, cannot abuse the sick man. This is the request of British government, health department, asking and organizing a conference on how to handle Keshe Foundation health section. We will not receive any kind of support. Keshe Foundation will not receive any kind of support. It has not received anything up to now either from EU or any government. Unless they have abused and taken the technology to see what they can do to create more abuse. I explained to you a very simple process. As all of you know, we are in a very advanced stage. We entered the second phase of testing in Fukushima regarding our materials, and because the first test set was very successful, second test initiated by the Office of the Prime Minister of Japan is in progress. We know the answer now starts again this week for another 10 days, and then we see what's the next step. Japanese government cannot support the Keshe Foundation or have in any shape or form connection with the Keshe Foundation in case the IAEA in Geneva might be spooked that they are working with the Iranian nuclear physicists to find a solution for their own nation, that they might break the boycott on Iranian nuclear physicists. Here, we give them the guidance how to do the proceed. They're spending millions to do it. But we cannot have a direct contact, and at the end, when they find the full solution report, I have to go to Geneva to report to IAEA how Japan can use my technology. You think we're going to get funding from any government when there is such a thing on the Iranian nuclear physicists? And then they tell me do not come because there is a sixth squad, a hitman by the American government sitting in the hotels. They give me the name and the hotels where they're sitting. So Japan stays in the same dilemma as it is. They cannot use, even they have the technology, because if I go to Geneva to declare what we've done and what the process is, I can get killed. Oh, by the American intelligence. And who gives us the information? Swiss Secret Service. It's not easy. Nobody comes to pay you. The only salvation you have is people like you and hundreds of thousands of scientists around the world and normal people like you developing the technology the way I'm guiding you, that through the mass availability, the governments, which is you lot, will change the course for you to be able to live a comfortable life. Why should Belgium government put a ban on a scientist who's needed and his technology is getting used for hundreds of thousands of people living in boxes due to Fukushima, not to be able to conclude the whole technology in a matter of hours in collaboration with the Japanese government? I had the same discussion with Sohail. Sohail explained to me that we cannot transfer the share of the company into my name because I'm Iranian, and secondly, I'm a nuclear physicist. Secondly, we never wanted because it had to be transferred to the share of the foundation, not to me. You have to understand the structure of the politics. In our position where we sit, we see the totality. You lot are really interested, who will... How many of you have sent a donation to the foundation? Some of you are very big businessmen. You are happy if you see energy. I might pay if I get the power supply. But all the teachings, everything we do, how many people have sent 1 million or 500,000 to the Keshe Foundation for Research and Development? None. Zero. We pay out of our own technology system worldwide. Due to our strength, we've done it for 10 or 15 years. EU will never allow you to pay 2% to Keshe Foundation. And they don't do it themselves. Let me explain to you why we have such a support in the scientific organization in a country like Italy. When Dirk Laurensens and I delivered the first patent to European Patent Office, and then when we had to make the presentation, there was one British nuclear physicist and 2 Italian nuclear physicists as the examiners. In that presentation, through their connection, which they report to their government, Italians understood what is on the table with Keshe Foundation. That's why we are here. That's why the university is getting done so fast. The 2 Italian professors in the European Patent Office, which Dirk and I made the presentation, was a 20-minute presentation run to nearly 3 hours, understood the potential. And the report sits in the government of Italian government. They know what is here. And that's why they broke rank. We talk to all levels according to what they understand that the humanity can get benefited by it. You say 2%, you calculate your taxes and as donations send 2% of your taxes to the foundation. We can do more. Nobody has sent a donation. Yeah, people make €5 donation when they can download the paper, then they have received something. We are opening a university. We have opened a university now in conjunction with Loom. We need equipment runs into millions. We haven't received any donation from any governmental organization to buy the equipment. I'm looking and I'll finance it that the students receive the equipment when they are there. Donation to the foundation, unless you don't receive a health support or download the paper, is more or less a few €100 a month. None of you rich people have donated and put it against your taxes. Out of what fear, I do not know. Let me explain to you something very simple to understand. There is a challenge called Earth Challenge put up by Richard Branson. We entered it years ago with Dirk Laurensens. He's got all the communications. He can publish it. And now we have put a CO2 kit out to absorb the CO2. We won the Earth Challenge, €25 million, $25 million put by Richard Branson years ago. Where is it? Why is it not paid to the foundation? If it was the CO2 kits which you are purchasing from the foundation, should have won the prize of the Earth Peace Challenge from the Richard Branson and Al Gore to be one of the judges years ago. We delivered it, we gave them, we sent the samples to London to the office. And Richard Branson said he hasn't received anything, anybody entering the competition. We said we did. Now the tools are outside. You buy one, send it to Richard Branson, and send one to Mr. Al Gore. Then if we receive the 25 million, it supports for the equipment for the university. We don't need charter, we take it out of our own strength. How many of you sit down tonight and calculate, I earn 10,000, 20,000, 2% is 200, 400 euro, I can put against my taxes paid to the donation to the Dutch Keshe Foundation? None. Zero. You're all talkers, none of you act. The only people who act are people who are putting their times, like Rick, like other people like Vince. At least they're supporting that it can come to the point that it can be brought out. We have made presentation to United Nations, we have made presentation to EU, we have made presentation to scientists of the Americans of high caliber, nothing. And it will be nothing because your leaders do not want this to be on the table. But unfortunately, we played it the right way. Too many people have the knowledge. Now you start deciphering. I see people send emails to the foundation. I paid €5 donation to download the paper and I haven't received it. They go to PayPal, I want the €5 donation back. Nobody has gone, maybe one or two have gone and chosen €100 to download the paper. You pay the minimum donation just because you received something. You're all thieves, without respect. And we give it, the more freely we give, the more thieves you're becoming. But in time you will change. As I always say, the love of Father is free. It's the children who have to learn not to abuse the Father. Any other question?
Well,
I think we should wrap it up.
I think
on
so.
that note, yeah. We're over 3.5 hours here, so it's probably time.
Thank you very much. Thank you indeed.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
Thank you very much. We hopefully, if we are in Barry on Tuesday, we do the first workshop out of the university premises. And we'll see what
interesting. Great. Looking forward to that.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, too.
We'll see you on Tuesday. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody on Skype and GoToMeeting and live stream and generally around the universe. And so ends the 51st Knowledge Seekers Workshop. And thanks, everyone, for attending.